Welcome to the podcast where relationships, confidence, and determination all converge into an amazing, heartfelt experience. This is Speaking from the Heart.
Welcome back to episode number 184 of Speaking from the Heart. Today I'm breaking another milestone, even after all these episodes I've done, by having a fellow Josh on the show. So I'm super excited about finally having someone else that shares the same name as me. Joshua D. Noland, specifically, is on the show today, and he's an acclaimed author of the Protein Lifestyle series, including Living the Protein Lifestyle, the Protein Lifestyle Workbook, and the Protein Lifestyle Cookbook. He is on a mission to help others by improving their health by developing healthy habits. He advocates for a whole food diet, an active lifestyle, and emphasizes the significance of mental well-being. He was able to overcome food addiction and depression by taking control of his health and found lasting success. Outside of his writing, Joshua is an avid outdoorsman and a devoted dog father, continually inspired by nature and his loyal canine companions. And I have to say, for somebody that shares the same first name as me, I certainly related to Josh's story today, especially as he went through all the different areas of his life that ultimately led him down his path of writing these different protein lifestyle books. I think that we really take away a number of different things when we think of exercise, especially in this time of year, which is really popularized by the fact that we want to jumpstart hitting some major goals, and one of those goals includes physical fitness. But when you feel depressed and you're trying to take out all these different things that are challenging in the world, of course it's going to be tough to even reach a goal like that. I think what you'll find, especially as we have this conversation today, that it's not just about mastering life or mastering a set of recipes that will help you to feel better. But I think that if you have the three pillars, which we talk about, nutrition, fitness, and recovery, not only do you have an opportunity to reset yourself, but you also have a way that you can shift the focus. You can stop feeling stressed. You can stop feeling overwhelmed. And that you can help yourself with being coached in more ways than you maybe ever found possible doing it all by yourself. This is the biggest time of year for accountability. And if there's anything that you take away from today, it's that there's nothing that's impossible. And I certainly can say that someone that shares the first name like myself, you can learn so much from people like Josh, especially like we have as a double dose of them today. But with that, let's go to the episode. All right, we have Joshua Noland with us. Joshua, thanks for sharing your heart with us today.
It's my pleasure to be here today, Josh. Really appreciate you having me on the show.
Yeah, and I have to thank Buzzsprout for connecting us. It's been a while since I had somebody on the show from Buzzsprout, so I really thank you so much for taking some time to do this with me today. So I want to start off, because I've already let my listeners, Josh, know a little bit about your background, which, by the way, you have such a beautiful name. Thanks for having that name given to you. I have to start off with that.
We do share that in common.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
It's a great name.
I love that. And I have to acknowledge that because I'm sure people are like, oh, great. We're going to have to hear bros named Josh talking to each other today.
I'm just going to have to suffer through it.
They do. They're going to have to deal with it. But Josh, I want to start off with the fact that you're an author. You have written a number of books about the protein lifestyle. But obviously, before we even dive into any of those books, there's a backstory as to why you went on this health journey, why you went on this physical journey to become better overall. So I'm wondering if you could share a little bit of your backstory as it relates to that for us.
Definitely, I'd love to. My whole life, I was overweight and I struggled with depression, overeating, food addiction. And there was just one point in 2019, I was coming home from work and I was walking up the steps. And mind you, this is only 5 or 6 steps. And by the time I got to the top, I was out of breath. And I had been tired of feeling sick and tired. And it was at that point when I decided that I needed a change and I wanted to take control of my health. So I started by talking to a therapist and they mentioned meditation. Now, I never thought that I would be the kind of person that would tried meditating, but I was in a place where I was open to trying new things, and I gave it a shot and I really liked it. Afterwards, I felt a sense of calm, and I felt like I had more mental bandwidth to deal with struggles that came up during the day. And I also started exercising. I started doing strength training a few days a week. And man, it was really hard. Just after a few repetitions, I would be really tired and start sweating, but I stuck with it. And after a few weeks, I started getting into it and I started feeling really good along with the meditation. But I had a lot of weight to lose and I decided to change my diet. And that's when I started cutting out the processed foods and eating more whole foods and more protein in particular. That was 4 years ago, and I've lost over 80 pounds and kept it off despite having a knee surgery in the middle of all of it. And I really want to share my story with anyone who it could benefit to try to help them take control of their own health.
You said something earlier that I want to focus on for a second because I think that for many people, there's a disconnect between the physical and the mental aspects of why sometimes people go down a journey of being overweight. And I was sharing with you even before the show of the things that I'm trying to do, even with my own physical health, because I need to get back in the gym. And I relate to you, Josh, when it comes to being able to go upstairs and feeling winded. I've had clients even through my business that have talked about this personally. Why is mental health so critical to also the physical health aspect?
Well, I believe that mental health is the most important aspect to overall health. If you don't care about yourself, you're not going to take the time to focus on eating right, exercising, and that's where it all starts. So many of us are in a bad place emotionally, and it really takes that motivation and that drive to want to improve your health to take that first step.
What was it that you were going through mentally that maybe was challenging for you to also work on yourself physically? I'm wondering if you could share maybe some insight, what you were going through, your thought pattern back in 2019 for us.
Yeah. Like I mentioned, I was depressed. I was kind of always depressed throughout childhood and my young adulthood. And I had spoken with therapists in the past, but I never took it seriously. And I never really exercised regularly. And also my diet was bad. And I had a lot of anger issues. I would get frustrated easily and it would take a long time to calm down. And I knew I needed to change. And that's why I started talking to a therapist, because I knew I needed to get my head right so I could be in a good place to start taking care of myself again.
All of us have gone through COVID. And I imagine that even for going to therapy, and I'm imagining that you were doing that even in 2020, it had to be extremely tough to kind of keep that balance and to even take some of the suggestions, like you said, from a therapist, although you might have not believed in it. To be honest with you, Josh, I was starting therapy when COVID happened, when I was trying to end my life a few years ago, which my listeners know all about. I'm completely on the different end of that and super thrilled
Mm.
that I am interviewing people like you. But I'm wondering if that was a struggle for you. And if it wasn't, like, how did you cope with it and those different mechanisms, especially that we had to endure during the shutdown?
Yeah, the COVID lockdowns really took a toll on everyone's mental health. A lot of people are still struggling today. I was lucky enough to start my health evolution before COVID. So I already had some mechanisms in place to deal with it. But still with that, I mean, it was so scary when it first came out. Me and my wife were very scared. We were wiping down our groceries, sanitizing groceries, and just taking every precaution. But luckily, we were a little isolated. We were living in the mountains and we didn't have too many people around. And we had access to 60 acres of the beautiful, pristine pine forest property where I had worked. And the exercise and the eating right and the meditation and all the other mental health strategies really helped me get through that. even though it was very scary and me and my wife felt very isolated from our friends and family. But as time went on and we realized that it might not have been as dangerous as it was presented to be, it got easier. But I really feel for people that were stuck in an apartment and didn't have those other resources to try to deal with all the stress and anxiety that came with a global pandemic.
We were all learning new skills and new opportunities to even exploit some of the challenges of COVID to the best of our ability, although they obviously brought the evolution of DoorDash and other food service companies to the forefront because we couldn't have that contact. So I feel like we all were trying to kind of figure out where we were in their space. But I have to say, before we even dive into your books, your background is in the food service industry, and that allowed you to have all kinds of different opportunities with food preparation and all those aspects that come along with it. And I had a guest on the show before, Josh. His name is Michael Dugan. He's actually the intro and outro of my podcast. And I had him on because he has a culinary background. He has a podcast that kind of talks about that. So my listeners learned a lot about that. If you are a listener, you haven't listened to Michael's episode, I encourage you to check that out. But Josh, what does it mean to do food preparation in your world, especially when it comes to a healthy lifestyle? Is there something that you have found to be effective? Because I feel like people always want to make the excuse of, I don't have enough time. It costs so much to do this, and I don't know if I have those kind of resources. So I'm wondering if there's been some sort of quote unquote life hack maybe that you've learned.
Yeah, I've spent thousands of hours in the kitchen. My dad had a catering company as I was growing up, and I started working with him and cooking with him from a very young age. And it's second nature to me. And I know a lot of people are struggling to cook their own foods, but it's very, very important that people cook their own foods these days. Restaurants use inexpensive and available ultra processed oils that are very unhealthy, very inflammatory to the body. Also, the proportions that food comes in from restaurants and stores, not in the right macronutrient proportions. You're not getting enough protein or fat and too much carbohydrates. And so it's critical that people prepare their food at home using whole food ingredients. And some tips for that would be to start out slow and find simple recipes that you can learn and master and then customize to your particular taste. You want to eat things that you like eating and you enjoy making. Making food in bigger batches, doing meal prep kind of stuff is excellent for busy people. And it could be as easy as cooking a chuck roast in your Instant Pot and dividing it up into portions, and you can either freeze them for future use, pull it out, defrost it, and you have a meal, or you can throw it in the fridge and take it to work. But really what you like to eat, finding simple recipes that you can discover. And I have my cookbook out now, and there's a ton of recipes. They're high protein. They're easy to make. And actually, I have a meatball rating system that I like to use for the recipes. So a 1 meatball recipe would be an easy recipe, and a 5 meatball recipe would be a more difficult recipe, like my smoked Texas style brisket recipe, which takes about 8 hours to make. But it's definitely not for beginners.
Josh, you're killing me over here. I'm like super hungry now wanting to have brisket. So now I
Yes,
understand.
I dream of brisket. I was in Austin and they have some of the best brisket around. And I have to say, I think my brisket is on par with that Texas barbecue.
Now you got me really curious to pick up the cookbook as soon as possible so that I can try some of these recipes. But before you make me more hungry, let's pivot quickly. It's some of the books that you've written. Now, for my listeners, I will have links to these in the episode notes, and obviously you can find this on Josh's website. But there is the Living the Protein Lifestyle. That's number 1. There is the Protein Lifestyle Workbook. And then what you mentioned just now, the Protein Lifestyle Cookbook. So here's my first question. First off, I never had somebody on the show that had pitched their cookbook, so you got that title as well, as long as being with Josh. But I love that you kind of have this feature on just protein. So why protein? Why is that important for us?
Yeah, that's a great question. Most people are not eating enough protein, and it's really unfortunate because it has so many benefits, including brain function, satiety, muscle growth and maintenance. It's even good for weight loss, improved recovery after a workout. It plays a vital role in hormone production and even the immune system.
What did it mean for you when you started eating more protein, probably even using some of the techniques that you feature in the literature that you've published? What did that do for you personally? Did you notice a significant change? And I wonder if you can walk us through the stages as you developed that.
Yeah, I always recommend people start slow in anything they do, and especially eating more protein. So for most folks, that could look like just adding an extra egg to your breakfast or adding an extra hamburger patty to a hamburger. But when I started incorporating more protein into my diet, I noticed that I was less hungry and I didn't want to snack during the day. Most people may have cereal or pancakes for breakfast, and all these carbohydrates make your body release insulin, and then you crash and you're hungry again and you're tired and you feel brain fog. But when you eat protein, it keeps you full for longer and it fuels you throughout your day. And so I noticed that right away when I started eating more protein.
Now, when you wrote the protein lifestyle, and obviously I haven't had an opportunity to read it, it's something that I would love to dive into myself because, like I said, I'm really trying to be a little bit more health conscious, especially being in this new year. I got to be able to keep going on what I started last year, so that's really important for me. But
Definitely.
you mentioned three pillars, and I wonder if you could walk us through the three pillars with the protein lifestyle for us.
Yes, the three pillars of optimal health, or the trifecta, I like to call it. So the first pillar is nutrition. It's a common saying, you can't outrun a bad diet. And that means that you can't go and splurge and eat a dozen donuts and then think you can go to the gym and run for 4 hours and work it off. It's just not physically possible. So it's really important what you eat, and it's more important what you don't eat. I highly recommend people stick with whole foods as much as possible and try to limit processed foods as much as they can. The second pillar is fitness. Fitness is very important for your overall health. It can affect your mental health, and it can make you resilient towards injuries or disease, and it can make you feel good. Not just feeling strong, but also your muscles release chemicals that make you feel good when you exercise. And especially as we get older, strength training is very important to keep your bones strong. A lot of older folks are at risk of falling and breaking a hip, and it can be very detrimental. But if you exercise regularly and you're strong, you can avoid those kinds of injuries. The third pillar is recovery, and that's a two-parter. The first part being mental wellness, and the second part being physical recovery. So we already kind of spoke about mental wellness, about how important it is to be in a good place emotionally and mentally so you can have that motivation to take care of yourself. And some strategies you can use for that are practicing gratitude, having a positive mindset, or breathing exercises. And the second part, physical recovery, is really important, not just for when you're exercising, but if you twist your ankle or you fall and sprain your wrist, it's really important to care for those injuries by using cold therapy or heat therapy or different supplements like creatine. Creatine is an amazing supplement, not just for repairing your muscles, but it also plays a big role in mental health and how you feel. And I recommend everyone take creatine, 5 milligrams of creatine monohydrate every day, just as a baseline supplement. It's the most researched supplement of all of them. And that's the trifecta.
With someone that might listen to this, they might have different perspectives. I know for me, probably my diet will need a lot more nutritional value, probably a lot more minerals, vitamins, stuff of that nature. So being able to customize that is really important. And I have to say, what I really loved, and I know that this is for some people a taboo topic, but I actually had a classmate, even growing up, deal with multitude of different digestive issues. I noticed that you have something with IBS or irritable bowel, and this is kind of a TMI moment here for the show, but I know that my family has gone through a lot of those things. It's something that we just had poor diets, possibly, but also I know it's genetic in nature that it can be passed along. So I wonder if you could speak a little bit about how somebody could customize this for just irritable bowel or anything of that nature, but I'm wondering how this could be tailored towards somebody that might have some different dietary or nutritional needs.
Of course. Yeah. So many people are struggling with IBS and other digestive diseases these days. It's really a big deal. I wrote a book called Irritable Bowel Syndrome Relief, which goes over the 7 key strategies to conquer IBS. And it's basically the same kind of information that I discuss in Living the Protein Lifestyle, but directed more towards bowel disorders in general. And the same items of the trifecta apply: changing your diet, eating more whole foods and less of the processed foods, less starchy carbohydrates, even less plants at times. Plants, they don't have any way to defend themselves. They can't fight back. They can't run away. And they use chemicals to protect themselves. And sometimes these chemicals can block the absorption of nutrients in your body. And even the fiber at times can irritate your system as well. So if someone is really struggling with a digestive disorder, my protocol would be to start by doing a 24-hour fast where you're only drinking water, maybe some tea, but definitely nothing with any calories in it. And then I would recommend drinking a bone broth. A homemade bone broth would be best. And you can make bone broth very easily with a pressure cooker or even just a stock pot on the stove by boiling some beef bones or chicken bones, even just chicken legs, with some carrots and some apple cider vinegar, some salt, some lemon juice. And then you let that cool, and then you refrigerate it overnight. And then you take the layer of fat that has solidified on top and you remove that, because fat can be very hard to digest, especially people with an irritated gut. So you want to remove that fat. Normally, you want to keep the fat. A lot of people are really scared of eating fat, and it's a shame because there are essential fats along with essential proteins. And then after the bone broth, I would recommend drinking only bone broth for a day and then starting an elimination diet. There's several elimination diets that people can choose from, but one of the simplest ones that I can recommend is the carnivore diet. Just eating animal protein, animal products, eggs, beef, chicken, fish, whatever you like. And that's one way that people can start addressing those issues, along with exercise and mental health, because the gut brain axis is very important. What you eat affects how you think, and how you think affects how your stomach and your digestive system works.
I noticed that you are bridging a lot of different areas for our listeners and even for me, where it comes from not just being able to take the talents and the knowledge that you've learned as being a chef and writing those things down, but obviously you're working with people that are trying to also change their lives for the better. What has it meant for you, especially going through the last few years of your life, redesigning your own mental, physical wires, basically rewiring everything, and now helping other people through the resources that you're providing along with your direct expertise? What do you think that has meant for you, Josh?
I mean, it's meant everything. I used to stuff my face with candy and chips at night, And it's what made me feel good. I'd have a hard day at work. I'd have an argument with my wife, be stressed out about bills. And then I would feel okay because I knew at home I had peanut butter M&Ms or hot flaming Cheetos. And that was what I looked forward to. But now I can look forward to waking up in the morning and getting some early low angle sun in my eyes, because I know it's really important for helping set my circadian rhythm, which will help me sleep better at night. And I really look forward to my meditation and eating, especially knowing because it's nourishing my body and how good I feel when I eat healthy. And if I could only help one person with the books that I've written or by doing this interview, that's what's really important to me, is to share my story and to help as many other people as I can, even if it's just one person.
You remind me of so many people I've had. I had a number of people in the fitness industry, and I even have a regular client right now in which they're building their business and personal training and nutrition planning and all of that. It's amazing to me to see how all these motivations come from different types of stories that we have. And Josh, I see you as kind of this balanced person that I see today, which unfortunately for my listeners, they don't see you, but I see you, and I see the strength that you have been able to grab as a result of focusing on that. How can people achieve what you have achieved? Obviously, they're not going to get the same direct results that you have. Obviously, that's impossible. And we even have talked about earlier that everybody has different dietary needs. They have different ways that they go about it. We're in a new year. It's 2025. How can people get started in something like this and not burn out? Maybe this is the year that they finally say, I've had enough. Is there any recommendations that you want to give to them?
Yes. I highly recommend that whenever you start something new, you start slow and make small changes over time. It's so easy to get wrapped up in the new year, setting goals and getting overwhelmed. Changing your diet alone is a huge change. Many people are so emotionally connected to their foods. It can be very overwhelming to start a new diet. And I recommend that people start slow, start prioritizing their protein. And like I mentioned earlier, that could just look like adding an extra egg or having a bigger steak or any small little change like that. And especially when it comes to exercise. If you haven't exercised before, all you have to do is 5 or 10 minutes and you're going to be sore the next day. So take it slow. Don't overdo it. Don't injure yourself and set yourself back even further. One good way to start adding more physical fitness to your life is just going for a walk after every meal. Even if it's only 5 minutes, 10 minutes. It's so good for your digestive system. Also being outside, getting that fresh air, getting that sunlight. It's so good for your body in so many ways. And I'd also recommend starting to take care of your mental health. And one easy way to do that is start meditating. It only takes 5 minutes, 10 minutes. You can use an app. I use the Calm app. I recommend the Daily Calm. It's a guided meditation, 10 minutes every day. It's something new and it helps you get started. There's also tons of videos on YouTube or even just going somewhere quiet and just listening to nature. You sit down, just focus on your breathing, and it recharges you and re-energizes you for the day.
Those are all awesome tips. And I think that for someone that is just starting out too, one of the things that I've learned in my journey is to just continue to be persistent, be consistent as much as you can, even if you can't give 100%. I've learned that so much, and you kind of reaffirmed that for me, Josh, when it comes to your journey. And it's always good to have somebody on the side too. And I was waiting for you to be like, hey, get a coach too while you're at it, because they can help you stay accountable. But I'll take that part of it and run with it too. But
It's definitely important to have people that can keep you accountable and help support you and guide you through your process.
absolutely. There you go.
Great.
Now we got you in with that as well. Josh, I want to give you the last few minutes here. People might be interested with learning more about your books and the cookbooks, and maybe they want to find you. Maybe they want to get in contact with you. Maybe they want to follow you on social media. I'm going to give you the last few minutes to share all that great information of how they can do that, and off you go.
Yes, of course. You can learn more about me and take advantage of the free resources on my website, including my top 3 high protein recipes at joshnoland.com. JOSHNOLAND.com. And you can also contact me there. You can find my books. You can find my social media links. It's all there.
Josh, I have to say, I'll first off put these all in the episode notes. You are my counterpart in many different ways, not just by name, because I feel that we need to have that consistency, and you have brought a model for us, even with using protein as a way in which we can go towards our goals. And I've always said on this show, and I've even said to many of my clients, there is no one right path. There are many multiple right paths. The wrong path is to not do anything. And I think that this is where the intersection happens today, especially if you are listening to this, is that if you're able to start that, even if you have that anxiety, that depression, you feel like the stress is overwhelming you, just like you shared in your story, it's not the end of the world. It's just a matter of just taking that small step. And I love that advice that you gave, because it's all about those small steps that we can do. And for all those reasons, Josh, thanks for being on Speaking from the Heart today. Thanks for being my brother with another Josh name and breaking that cycle today, because I was waiting for another Josh to show up, and you finally did. It took a while, but we got there. But more importantly, thanks for your interest and help in the community of those that are trying to be more health-centric and all the work that you're doing. Keep doing it, and I applaud you for all that you have accomplished and will accomplish. So thanks again for being part of the show.
Thank you, Joshua. It's been a real pleasure.
I want to thank Joshua again so much for being part of the show, sharing his story of how he's overcome not only his weight loss journey, but now he's on a mission to inspire others and to help them along the way through coaching, guidance, nutrition planning, and so much more, trying to get to the other side. And I think that we can learn so much about being overweight, not being physically fit, because I personally have struggled with this ever since I was a kid. And I've made 2025 the year in which I really want to get myself back on track. I know that that might be a lofty goal and I might not quite make it, but I want to have reasonable steps that I take that will help me strive towards that positive direction. And that's what I need to do for myself. But for other people, maybe even you, my listeners, it's about just making that effort, having that accountability, changing the inputs, as we just literally talked about in our last monologue episode before this interview today, of how it is that we could change not just those inputs, but also how they can release different outputs as well. But when you feel depressed, it takes everything out of you. It has such an energy-sucking feeling that even when you try to get yourself back on track, when you try to push yourself into that positive direction, when you say to yourself that you're not going to be that person that you once were, it's still not easy to do. Mental health diseases like depression can sap everything out of you. So you need to have better mechanisms. You have to have a better support system, and you have to learn about what it is that is really holding you back so that you're not held back anymore. It can be challenging to see what those different things are, and I encourage you to go get tested. Go see your family doctor. Go see a nutritionist, if you will, to help you with analyzing your numbers, seeing where those things are. Because when I did that a number of years ago, after I tried to end my life, I learned so much about my body, and I started to realize that I was lacking a lot of the vital nutrients and minerals for myself so that I could get myself back on track. But there's a variety of strategies, and Josh's strategy is one of many that I'm sure that we've heard one time or another, trying to figure out whether it will really work for us. And it's okay if it doesn't for you. Maybe there's different nutrient needs. Maybe there's different minerals that you need. Maybe there's a different lifestyle that you have. But it's all about starting out slow, mastering what it is that you need to master, that recipe for success, and being able to create quantity over the quality in the beginning. Even just reaching a couple of the macronutrients that you need, even just trying to get the opportunity to find somebody that will help you with that accountability strategy is a big blessing in itself. Even eating protein, which you might be thinking, well, what happens to vegetables? What happens to fruits? Aren't those important as well? Again, this is just one strategy, and it has worked for Joshua and being able to become better with where he is today. It doesn't mean, though, that you start to starve yourself, that you throw yourself off because you think that that dream, that possibility of losing weight is impossible to have. It's just like that with any lifestyle that we choose. If we're not willing to at least take a dip in the pool, trying to see if it even works in the beginning, how will we ever know? And I think that's why Josh's pillars, nutrition, fitness, and recovery, is really something that he had to master and figure out in his own adaptation. Nutrients, especially, as I've even said, you have to be realistic about what you put in. You can't have a bad diet. You can't just eat meat and then say to yourself, oh, I want to have those bag of potato chips, or I want those tortilla chips dipped in salsa. Now I want to go and eat some of those, especially as I'm trying to now cut back on those in the new year. But even then, if you think about fitness, trying to also get the balance of exercise, operating from a caloric deficit so that you are actually telling your body, yes, I'm feeding you, but now it's time to also supplement that with what you have stored in your body. Building in those chemical balances are super key, super key in order for you to do that. Once you have the nutrition and the fitness, it's really about your recovery time. Not just in the way in which you rest your muscles, which most people forget. And it's not just about the muscle recovery, the physical aspect of all that lactic acid that's trying to be pushed out of your body, but it's also about the mental. It's about what you put inside yourself, that positive mindset, the breathing exercises, all the aspects that Josh talked about today is something that I resonate so deeply with, and I try to focus on not just with my individual clients, but working in groups, working with businesses, and doing my workshops and speaking engagements as I'm given those opportunities. When we have all those pillars, we can still be set back. We can have medical setbacks that might be from our genetics, the things that we haven't discovered about ourselves because they haven't been told about ourselves. Our body needs rest. And if we're not able to give that rest for proper time, for proper nutrition purposes, that balance, which is certainly key, is not going to be the key when you're messing it all up. And it's not necessarily about you messing it all up, but you let the inputs and the outputs mess everything up. Do you want to stuff your face? Do you just want to continue doing that? Or do you want to just be consistently stressed out? I'll tell you that those were always the questions that I asked myself, and I always answered yes. I want that to happen to me. And I freely did that with no recourse, not a care for the world, because honestly, I didn't love myself. I didn't like who I was. And it doesn't mean that I still don't struggle with it today, because we all have lapses. And it's okay to be human. It's okay to speak about this, because essentially, even speaking from your heart, the main premise of why we even do this podcast is to be authentic versions of who we are, even when it comes to our diet, even when it comes to the struggles of trying to stay on that plan, what it would mean so that we can actually enjoy what the health benefits are, instead of worrying about all the negative consequences. You don't need to be overwhelmed anymore. That's really what Josh is trying to say, especially when it comes to dieting. Walking, even just doing that, which is something that I had to restart again in 2025 after all these years, can be a great way to release natural endorphins, being able to jumpstart the muscles in your body and start that recovery process, that third step, just for healing some of the other parts while you're spending energy to burn. But I have to say, above all else that Josh talked about today, is about the coaching. It's about the ways in which we can help each other to become accountable, to be able to help. Now, the question becomes, will you even try? Will this be yet another episode that goes by and you let yourself wonder, what if? What if I am able to try a protein lifestyle? What if I'm able to really balance what my needs are, dietary-wise, mental health-wise, physical rise, and being able to put those all together into inputs and outputs that will push me into the direction that I want to go. There's nothing wrong with accountability, and I've been stressing this so much that I sometimes feel like it's a broken record, but yet, when we are really faced with it, that's when real change begins. I've seen many people walk away thinking that they can handle it all by themselves, not realizing that there's many different perspectives. And it doesn't mean that I'm withholding that information, but I'm giving people that opportunity, that space to spend their time, their money, and their resources so that they can get quality advice, being able to help them to get to where they need to be. That's what you're paying for, and that's what Josh is asking you to pay for. All that research, all that time, all that effort that got him to where he is. And there's nothing wrong with being able to share that wealth, especially when you know its worth. I know these lose weight, get results fast schemes, especially when it comes to the exercise industry, have really turned us off the last 50 years. And I say 50 years because I remember even infomercials back in the 80s saying that you can lose all this weight. You can try to do all these things and it will make you feel much better. But even as a society that has taken a big step back from being more active because our jobs are not as active as they used to be because of automation, technology advances, and so much more, why wonder we have a crisis in obesity? Why wonder our kids don't get enough exercise every single day? Why wonder it is such a frustrating statistic to see that fast food, fatty acids, all these imbalances with cancer, diabetes, emphysema, all these areas in which are caused by alcohol use, drug use, smoking, tobacco, all those different ingredients, all those different inputs cause the outputs that we are now experiencing. But it doesn't have to be that way anymore. Depression is scary, something that I've lived through, and I can tell you by firsthand experience what it means to get to that other side. But I will tell you that it's the journey that will continuously pop up if you're not willing to continue to work on yourself. And that's what I'm trying to do, even to this day, your podcast host. So be like the Joshes today, both the guest and the host. Do something that will develop that control. Even if you just experiment and dip your toe into the pool of what it looks like to have a protein lifestyle, it can help you with these pillars. Your nutrition, your fitness, your recovery. Even if you have things that set you back medically, are those still things that you can have adjustments to? You can modify the exercise. You can modify the diet, even the recovery, so that you are able to feel like you're making progress. Can we help you with getting to where you need to be? That's really what this is about. You don't have to suffer alone anymore because we are here for you, both Joshes included. Even then, when your body has to reset, it has to start somewhere. And I think that even if you take the smallest of feats today, even if you're still struggling to get started in this new year, 2025, I think that even when you feel a little stressed out and you're trying to not be as overwhelmed, know that there is already a playbook waiting for you to try to take action on. It doesn't take that much more effort, except if you're not willing to put that effort in. And I think that's a whole other type of conversation that we can tailor that approach to. If you're just willing to be authentic and realize that you're not have to suffer anymore, we are here to help you. Not only every step of the way, but to help you with your nutrition, your exercise, and your ability, more importantly, to recover. Because that road to recovery is something that I would love all of us to start today. Thanks for listening to episode number 184 of Speaking from the Heart, and I look forward to hearing from your heart very soon.
Thanks for listening. For more information about our podcast and future shows, search for Speaking from the Heart to subscribe and be notified wherever you listen to your podcasts. Visit us at www.yourspeakingvoice.biz for more information about potential services that can help you create the best version of yourself. See you next time.